You made it.
Yep.
You're here.
Yep.
I suggested to your mom that she could skip the women's thing, come in here. She's like, "Oh, I'm gonna miss the last one." I was like, "Well, just."
So I said,
She just went, "Ha ha ha!"
just
I
come
went.
over here. She made.
What did you not?
She made tres leches cake, chocolate chip cookies.
I was like, "You could still eat.
chocolate chip muffins.
I'm in here.
I think we should go over there.
They eat first, eat, and then come in here."
Oops, sorry. These days, it's okay. I've been to ladies' meeting. It's good.
Hey, what's up, Zay?
Zay.
I know Charles is online. I know Jared's online. Tanya's probably there. And Joe Beth, Tanya, and Jeff will listen to this afterwards. So we'll try not to talk too bad about them. You gonna woosah from the argument with the pediatrician?
Sure.
Woosah. Did you tell them that you're pregnant and mad and angry at the world?
No.
And not to try you? You're fine where they are and beat their butts? No?
I just wanted unsweet tea. I wanted a giant glass of unsweet tea.
Well, we can get more unsweet tea. Are you gonna cry on it?
Do you happen to have an extra thing of
I can print you off one real fast. Oh, Jeff's actually online, so that's cool. He said he's watching.
Actually.
Oh, do you have an extra one?
Print two.
Huh?
You know.
Sure, not a problem. I can do that quickly. She can get it afterwards. It's fine. She'll be alright. Let's see if it works. It's firing up. Jordan, you want to grab those from Pels? Hey, what's this from? Very nice. See, the paper's coming from another tray. Jordan's like, "How's this printer working? There's no paper in it."
There's no paper.
I'm like, "There's more trays." There should be 2 pages apiece. All right, we're at it, ladies and gentlemen. We are at our final. I did not do it right. Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
We're at our final Bonhoeffer
Or Dante.
session. Yes, let's be
Proper German.
let's be correct. I feel, Jeff, like unless you're watching the kids, if you're watching this on your TV, you could be up here. I even made coffee, but that's all right. I'm just glad you're on. So we have 2 letters we're going to read today, and if you've already read them, good on you. The first one is pretty, I'd say, generic for the first half, and then he starts talking about this whole religionless Christianity kind of in the second half, and it gets pretty interesting pretty quick. And then the final letter that we're going to read is what he wrote. Both of these are to his best friend, Eberhard Bethge, and who gathered his letters and papers from prison. And the second one, obviously, is right after the failed plot to kill Hitler. So his first one, April 30th, 1944.
When was he executed again?
April 9th, 1945.
Okay.
what?
Thanks.
Oh,
When was Bonhoeffer executed? Yeah.
just short a year after.
Yeah.
But he was arrested.
In 43, I think, or 44. I can't remember.
The plot was in July 44.
Yeah.
Okay.
What
But he was arrested prior to that.
when was he arrested? Now you got me second guessing.
That's okay.
It may have been after. I thought it was before.
They could have.
Yeah, it was 1943. Yeah, he was arrested April 5th, 1943. He was killed I believe it was April 9th, 1945. Yeah, so he was in prison almost 2 years.
Wow.
So both these letters are letters from prison.
Wow.
All right. April 30th, 1944. Somebody read for me that paragraph that starts with "another month gone" and ends with "I'm already doing now."
Another month gone. Does time fly as fast with you as it does with me here? I'm often surprised at it myself. And when will the month come when you and Renate? That sound good enough? Renate?
Let's do it.
And Renate, I, and Maria, and we too can meet again. I have such a strong feeling that great events are moving the world every day and could change all our personal relationships that I should like to write to you more often, partly because I don't know how much longer I shall be able to, and even more because we want to share everything with each other as often and as long as we can. I'm firmly convinced that by the time you get this letter, great decisions will already be settling things moving on all fronts. During the coming weeks, we shall have to keep a stout heart, and that is what I wish. That is what I wish you. We shall have to keep all our wits about us, so as to let nothing scare us. In view of what is coming, I'm almost inclined to quote the biblical Dea, and I feel that I, quote, long to look, unquote, like the angels in 1 Peter 1:12, to see how God is going to solve the apparently insoluble. I think God is about to accomplish something that even if we take part in it either outwardly or inwardly, we can only receive with the greatest wonder and awe. Somehow it will be clear for those who have eyes to see that Psalm 58:11b and Psalm 9:19f are true, and we shall have to repeat Jeremiah 45:5 to ourselves every day. It's harder for you to go through.
I think it's harder for you to go through this.
Yeah, it's harder for you to go through this separated from Renee and your boy than it is for me. So I will think of you especially, as I am already doing now.
All right, so we've got a pretty generic, things are good with me, how are things going for you? What is his kind of attitude and tone?
Expectant.
Okay. Expectant? What else? So it's the Mad Libs. He's positive, he's hopeful.
Yeah,
Come on, throw him out.
Just
Anything you think of?
Take what comes.
Okay. I think he's a little more excited to take what comes. I think he looks pretty,
Yeah.
he's pretty pumped. He says
Okay.
God is about to accomplish something that even if we take part in it either outwardly or inwardly, we can only receive it with the greatest wonder and awe. God's about to do something amazing. He's super pumped.
So he's singing, "Bring It."
Yeah, sure, yeah. So they're super excited. What's he excited about? Well, let's keep reading.
Wait, what's the biblical deity? I tried to look that up, but all I got was diversity, equity, inclusion stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the word, I don't know. I'm assuming that's Latin.
I think.
Because in Greek, they is, it's used as like a sentence starter. It's like a conjunction.
Isn't deity, doesn't it mean God in some
Maybe.
language?
In Latin, maybe. In Greek days, like it's, let's see, it's necessary or it must, or it's part of the verb to be. So I don't know. I don't know what he means by that.
So 1 Peter 1:12.
Yeah, in Latin it's God. So
Oh, yeah.
inclined to quote the biblical, but I'm almost inclined to quote the biblical God. I don't know what that means. And feel that I long to look. I don't know. He's all over the place.
So 1 Peter 1:12, they were shown that they were serving not themselves but you in regard to the things now announced to you through those who proclaim the gospel to you by the Holy Spirit sent from heaven, things angels long to catch a glimpse of. That's why.
Yeah, he's just saying that he's basically longs to look at what God is about to accomplish.
Yeah.
God's about to solve the apparently insoluble.
Yeah.
Which I think he means insolvable, because insoluble is something that doesn't dissolve. Right? You're the ENT.
Right.
You tell me. So maybe it's just the translation failing. So, what could he be so excited about? What could God be about to solve that's apparently unsolvable?
This whole crisis that he's facing with,
Or Hitler being alive. Maybe knows they're about to off Hitler and he's super pumped about it.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like to me.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case though. We'll see. I think if we continue in the letter, we'll see what he's talking about. He doesn't, from what I can tell, he doesn't have that kind of inside information. He's not. It's his brother-in-law that's on the inside of that kind of stuff. He's already in prison. I don't think he knew that was going to happen. I think what he's excited about is this kind of religionless Christianity that he's going to talk about. Okay, so he says this: how good it would seem to me for both of us if we could go through this time together, helping each other. But it's probably better for it not to be so. But for each of us to have to go through it alone. I find it hard not to be able to help you in anything, except by thinking of you every morning and evening when I read the Bible, and often during the day as well. You can tell how close they are; they're best friends. You have no need to worry about me at all, as I'm getting on uncommonly well. You would be surprised if you came to see me. People here keep on telling me, as you can see, I feel very flattered by it, that I'm radiating so much peace around me, and that I'm always so cheerful, so that the feelings that I sometimes have to the contrary must, I suppose, rest on an illusion. Not that I really believe this at all. So he's doing well. People say you're always so cheerful. He radiates peace. He doesn't always feel that way. You would be surprised and perhaps even worried about my theological thoughts and the conclusions that they look to, which we're about to, because it's about to say some pretty interesting stuff. And this is where I miss you most of all, because I don't know anyone else with whom I could so well discuss them to have my thinking clarified. A lot of times we need people who understand what we're talking about to work through thoughts, ideas. What is bothering me incessantly is the question of what Christianity really is, or indeed, who Christ really is for us today. This is kind of where he starts. The time when people could be told everything by means of words, whether theological or pious, is over. And so is the time of inwardness and conscience. And that means the time of religion in general. So when he's talking about the time of inwardness and conscience, when it comes to religion, what movement is he referencing? What theological movement was focused on the inward, your conscience, how you felt about things?
Gnosticism is.
No, Gnosticism. You always want to be Gnosticism.
German relative.
You're close. Surely we can do that. Surely we can do this. It's the only one I mentioned 1,000 times. German liberal theology. Everybody say with me. German liberal theology. You're not saying with me.
I was close. I got German.
That was a softball. I thought we were gonna get that one. Yeah, remember that's the one that cares about. It doesn't matter whether the resurrection happened. It matters how it made you feel. And he says that time of inwardness, conscience. It's about how you feel about things. It's about you personally, your subjectivity. He says that time is over. It means the time of religion in general is over. We are moving toward a completely religionless time. People as they are now simply cannot be religious anymore. He's going to describe it. Even those who honestly describe themselves as religious do not in the least act up to it. And so they presumably mean something quite different by religious. So no one's religious anymore, and those people who say they're religious, they don't act the way they say they believe. So it's a useless phrase. It's a meaningless phrase. It doesn't mean anything. Our whole 1900 Christian preaching and theology rests on the religious a priori of mankind. All right, let's test some philosophy 101. What is a priori knowledge as opposed to empirical knowledge? What is a priori knowledge? If you're an empiricist, you would probably say that there is no such thing, or that there's only some such thing. If you're rational, or if you're a rationalist, you definitely believe in a priori knowledge. What is a priori knowledge?
Knowledge that just exists beforehand.
Yeah, knowledge that you just know. It's nothing, you don't have to experience it. It's knowledge you know beforehand. It's knowledge that's like programmed into your brain. Like you're born and grow up with this kind of knowledge. It's nothing that you have to experience. Okay? The rational person says you can sit in a dark room and think about things. You don't have to experience them. Of course, if you remember Descartes, what did Descartes famously say? I think, therefore I am. Right? The thinking is what is for rationalists. Empiricists, you have to experience everything. Why does this matter? Well, he's not talking about rationalism versus empiricism. He's talking about, when he says religious a priori of mankind, what does he mean? If a priori knowledge is knowledge that is not empirical, not experienced, but knowledge that is already kind of in your brain, pre-programmed in, what would the religious a priori of mankind be? What does he mean by that?
That we all have sort of the knowledge that there is a God.
Yeah, everybody has a God-shaped hole in their heart. No one has to be taught there's a God. naturally tend towards that. And he says our whole 1900-year-old Christian preaching and theology rests on this religious a priori, this foundation that's upon every human being that there is a God. Then he says Christianity has always been a form, perhaps the true form of religion. So the Christianity that's been taught has been a type, a form of religion. But if one day it becomes clear that this a priori does not exist at all, this is a claim that I think he's making, but was a historically conditioned and transient form of human self-expression. And if therefore man becomes radically religionless, and I think that is already more or less the case, and he keeps like not finishing his sentence. What does that mean for Christianity? Okay, but if one day it becomes clear that this a priori does not exist at all, but was a historically conditioned and transient form of human self-expression, what does that mean for Christianity? So he goes, okay, Christianity is built on this idea of religion, right? That's kind of in everybody. But we now live in a world, he's saying, where there's people who don't have that. They don't have that a priori knowledge. Like, religion is not the default for them. And he goes, well, if Christianity is built upon that, and that doesn't exist anymore, then what kind of Christianity are we left with? Right now, we have to remember as we go through this, his experience is with the Lutheran State Church of Germany, who has kowtowed to Hitler. 97% of World War II Germany were Christian. 97% of the country was Christian. 67% of America claims to be Christian. That means Nazi Germany was 30% more of a Christian country than America is right now. So for all the Christian nationalists that want to turn America into a Christian country, Nazi Germany was 97% Christian. And Hitler still happened. Okay? 97% of the people claimed to be Christians. They weren't atheists. They were Christians. They claimed to be. I'm not the one who judges. So I don't get to say who and who isn't a Christian. 97% of the country. So Bonhoeffer is looking at a state church who was kowtowed to Hitler. He's looking around him as 97% of the people who are throwing Jews into trains to go to concentration camps, who arrested him, who are ultimately going to hang him, say they're following Christ. And he's going, something is wrong with this. There's something wrong with this. And he goes, these people's faith, these people's Christianity is historically conditioned. They're Christians because they're Germans, and to be German is to be Lutheran. To be Lutheran is to be Christian. And he goes, that's just historically conditioned. That's transient. What's coming after is this religion-less. That's not true religion. So he goes, what is left? What does it mean for Christianity? He says it means the foundation is taken away from the whole of what has up to now been our Christianity. And that there remain only a few last survivors of the age of chivalry, or a few intellectually dishonest people on whom we can descend as religious. He says, by the end of this, when we're through this, all that's going to be left as far as who's going to be religious are the people who are kind of old-fashioned, or the people who are intellectually dishonest, who are lying to themselves. And he says, are they to be the chosen few? Is that all that Christianity is going to be? Is it on this dubious group of people that we're to pounce in fervor or indignation in order to sell them our goods? Is this the only people we have? Are we to fall upon a few unfortunate people in their hour of need and exercise a sort of religious compulsion on them? If we don't want to do all that, if our final judgment must be that the Western form of Christianity, of course he's again talking mostly about Lutheranism, too, was only a preliminary stage to a complete absence of religion, what kind of situation emerges for us, for the church? What does the church look like in Germany post-Nazism? How can Christ become the Lord of the religionless as well? Are there religionless Christians? If religion is only a garment of Christianity, it's only a shirt, a coat, and even this garment has looked very different at different times, which it has. Christianity throughout history has looked very different at different times. Then what is religionless Christianity? What Bonhoeffer is really asking is, he's going, what is the core of Christianity? Not what does Christianity look like? Not what is this religion that's based on this kind of a priori knowledge that's in people's heads that's clearly been like abused. But what is true Christianity? What does it mean to be a Christian? Especially, and what he doesn't know is he's really asking, what does it mean to be a Christian in a postmodern world? Even though the world is not really postmodern yet, and he dies before it, he has this strange vision of a world to come in which the world is what's called post-Christian, and that's the world we live in. Bonhoeffer, at the very last, the end of modernism, is looking ahead and saying, what does it mean to be a Christian in a world where it's not the default? The default is not to be religious. Where you go, okay, everyone believes in God. What are you? Oh, you're a Christian. Or what are you? Everybody believes in God. That's like the basis. What it means to be in a world where not everyone believes in God. Can Christ be a Lord of these? Can you be a Christian who is religionless, right? All right, then he says Bart, good old Bart, who is the only one to have started along this line. So Bart started along this line of thought. He did not, but he critiques him. He did not carry it into completion, but arrived at a positivism of revelation, which in the last analysis is essentially restoration. So what he says is, Bart started, but he didn't go far enough. Bart said, okay, well, let's find everything in the revelation of Jesus Christ. But what he's going to say is that he just restored the kind of religion-y Christianity. He didn't completely remove it from its foundation. He just arrived at this different viewpoint, and he kind of restored it. But Bonhoeffer's not asking how do we restore a religion-y Christianity. He's asking how do we get to a religionless Christianity. He says, for the religionless working man or any other man, nothing decisive is gained here. The question to be answered would surely be, what do a church, a community, a sermon, a liturgy, a Christian life mean in a religionless world? What does it mean to be Christian in 2025? How do we speak of God without religion? How do we speak, i.e., without the temporally conditioned presuppositions of metaphysics, inwardness, and so on? So he's going, how do we speak of God without talking either about your experience, your inwardness, right? Your subjective experience, or these like philosophical categories? Could God make a rock that's too big for him to roll? These kinds of dumb things. He goes, that's the only language we know to speak about God, either in these kind of high faulting philosophical terms or in our like subjective experiential terms. So how do we even speak about God without those things? How do we speak, or perhaps we cannot now even speak as we're used to, in a quote-unquote secular way about God? In what way are we religionless secular Christians? In what way are we the ecclesia, the church, the called out ones? Those who are also called forth, not regarding ourselves from a religious point of view as specially favored, but rather as belonging wholly to the world. Remember Bonhoeffer and his ethics? He doesn't believe that there's a reality of the church or a reality of God and a reality of like the world, but instead there's only the reality of God, right? There's only one reality. So how do we belong wholly to this world? Because this world is the Lord's reality. In that case, if we belong wholly to the world, Christ is no longer an object of religion. Okay, he's no longer just like the placeholder for whatever your God is, but something quite different. Really, the Lord of the world. But what does this mean? What is the place of worship and prayer in a religionless situation? Does the secret discipline, or alternatively the difference, which I've suggested to you before, between penultimate and ultimate, so penultimate, that would be like ethics, daily existence, those kinds of things. Ultimate would be like salvation, the kingdom of God, take on a new importance here. What Bonhoeffer was trying to get people to realize, what he's thinking about, is we're called to be followers of Christ in the world. In the world. We're not called to know certain things. We're not called to say certain things. We're not called to like go to this particular building. But instead, we're called, the religionless Christianity to Bonhoeffer is people who are following Jesus within the world. Now, if Bonhoeffer could see a lot of churches in America, many low churches in America, our church, Bible churches, they would be rocking with Bonhoeffer here. They would be right on with him. I mean, most of our low church, Bible church Christianity, those churches are the product of this kind of idea that goes, okay, let's get out of the creeds, let's get out of the symbolism, let's get out of the liturgy, let's get out of all of this, let's get out of all this tradition, let's strip all that stuff away. And what is left, right? And for most people, it's the text of Scripture. For Bonhoeffer, it would be Christ who's revealed in the text of Scripture. That's Bart and Bonhoeffer. And then Bonhoeffer would say, for anything else, what it means to be a Christian is to follow Jesus, but not in like some abstract way, not in some like philosophical way, but to follow Jesus in this world. So as you make decisions, as you go around, he's going to talk more about it in kind of his July 21st letter. And then he says, I must break off for today so that the letter can go straight away. I'll write to you again about it in 2 days' time. I hope you see more or less what I mean, that it doesn't bore you. Goodbye for the present. It's not always easy to write without an echo, and you must excuse me if that makes it something of a monologue. Just imagine getting these kinds of letters. You're just like, oh. And Bonhoeffer goes, what is a religionless Christianity? You're like, I don't know, man. You tell me. Write another letter. Explain it to me. I know it's a bit confusing, but again, if you look in the context of Bonhoeffer's imprisoned in a country that is almost 100% claiming to follow Jesus. And he's going, something's clearly wrong. How can you claim to follow Jesus and do these things? And he's going, well, these people aren't following Jesus in the world, right? They have some kind of liturgy they believe in, or they go to church and they like sing the songs, but it's not in their real life. It's just something they say they believe. They've compartmentalized religion and severed it from their life. Religion is just their subjective inner experience. German liberal theology. It's all these things.
They do 1 day a week.
Something they do one day a week, or something that they do privately.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to go pray to God. Like, I have this private religious experience. Okay, now time to go like burn more Jews. Like they don't see that. I don't mean that lightly. I mean that really. I mean, they do not see the problem with. They don't see how those two things should not be, like, you shouldn't be able to do both. You shouldn't be able to follow Hitler and Christ. And for Bonhoeffer, he goes, of course you can't follow Hitler and Christ. The only way you can follow Hitler and Christ is if the Christ you're following is not in this world. It's not in the real world. Not in the world where people are dying. It's in some other world, the world of your subjective inner experience, or the world of like your organized religious liturgy. It's in those worlds, but it's not in this world. And so Bonhoeffer will say, we need to be religion. And you've heard, it's not a religion, it's a relationship, which is just German theological liberalism in another guise. So throw that crap out too. It's not just a relationship, okay? It's also not religion. What is Christianity? Following Jesus. That's literally what it means. And Bonhoeffer says, true Christianity is following Jesus in this world. Okay? It's not your relation with Christ. That's some subjective religious experience. It's not about you. If Christianity is your relation with Christ, then it's about you. If Christianity is some religion, like Lutheranism or Baptistism, I don't know what our ism is, Presbyterianism, if that's what it is, then look what it can do. Right? Clearly, it's not that. But it's also not your personal subjective religious experience. It is following Jesus, but in the real world.
He's saying, be like Christ.
Here, today.
Here.
Like when there's someone out here tomorrow, when you're washing the clothes of the homeless people, that is something Christ would have you do. When you go and visit people in prison, when you help the children who come to your class and have a hard time speaking English, when you're doing these things that Christ would have you do in this world, you are actually following Jesus. That's what it is. Anything else, if you can't, there's plenty of people in this world who are monsters, and I mean monsters, who go to church, sing the songs, read the things, and then go back into the world and are monsters. Plenty of people, lots of people. Bonhoeffer is experiencing that. If 97% of the people in Germany are Christians, his jailers are Christians. The people that execute him are Christians. The people who hang him are Christians. Like, they say they are, but they're not following Christ in this world. And for Bonhoeffer, maybe even more than all of us, he has experienced that. But I would be very careful because obviously we are not in Nazi Germany. But I would be careful about two things from a kind of a larger perspective and then maybe one from a smaller. And then we got to read the other letter. One, be careful about getting all razzed up about trying to make America a Christian country. Okay? Because the path is narrow. There are few people who claim Christ who are actually Christians, who actually follow Christ in this world. And if you told me, we're going to try to get as many Christians in America to actually follow Christ in this world, I would say go for it. That's awesome. That's what we should be trying to do. Spread the gospel. Get people to follow him. If 97% of Americans said that they were Christians, most of them would not be. 67% of them say they're Christians. Most of them aren't, right? Not really. They're not really following Christ in this world. If 2/3 of this country were following Christ in this world, people would not be dying because they can't afford insulin. Right? Children would not be hungry at school. We wouldn't have the crises that we have going on. If 2/3 of the country woke up every day and said, how do I follow Christ in this world today? We wouldn't have those problems. That's 2/3 of the country said they were. Well, 97% of them were. If 97% of the country said they were Christians, I don't know what we would have. But 97% of Germany said they were, and they got Hitler. So it's not a solve all just to get the numbers up. So be careful about Christian nationalism. That's not going to work. Go ahead.
Is there, okay, I understand what you're saying about
Yeah.
the Christianity Christians.
Yeah.
The minority is this, Christ-like.
Yeah.
The majority is just in name.
Yeah, not real Christians.
Is there something, what would, if you say these people are not real Christians.
Yeah.
You want to separate them from these people.
No, Bonhoeffer, we're all together. We got to live amongst them, love them, be a part of them. They're going to come into our churches because we don't.
I'm kind of just looking for another noun or definition of what
Yeah.
these people are, other than saying Christians, because that lumps them in with this group.
Okay.
When these people excel or above and being Christ-like.
They're religious people.
Okay. See, the word religion throws me off.
Yeah, you don't like it.
I don't like it.
And neither did Bonhoeffer. So you two are birds of a feather.
Yeah. I mean, the word religion just seems too legalistic.
Well, but that's who these people are. They have a religion that they claim that they're Christian, but that religion is not following Christ in this world. So be careful about Christian nationalism. Stay away from that. And just also, we have to be. It's not about how you feel personally, but it is about how you answer this call to follow Christ in this world. And be careful about tying yourself to any particular political party because neither of them are following Christ in this world. That's pretty clear. I would say so. But also, I would make the case that a Christian's allegiance is to who? Christ, above all. You can be a good American, you can vote in your election, you can fanboy or whoever your presidential candidate or Senate candidate or whatever it is, that's fine. Go nuts, I don't care. Wear your hats, wave your flags, do your thing. But realize that your allegiance is to Christ foremost. And that you have brothers and sisters who are wearing the other hat, waving the other flags. And I mean actual brothers and sisters, not people who claim to be Christian and aren't, or just religious. I mean actual Christian, following Jesus Christians. And you are their brother and sister, and you have a closer connection. You should be closer to them than your buddies on whatever political spectrum you are. I hate to break it, but not all Republicans who claim they're Christians are Christians, and not all Democrats are going to hell. It's just not the case. I mean, from what I see, when I look at when we have a GMF meeting, we have pastors, people who are uh, leading their congregations. The ones that I know, almost to a T, politically, are separated politically along racial lines. Almost all of them. That's maybe not the case across the country, but it is here. Like Micah Johnson, who came and preached in our church, did a great job. Guarantee you,
He's blue.
that's just the way it is. You might be red. Okay, you and him, and I know him very well. He's a very good friend of mine. I would bet a lot of money that he's actually following Christ, is an actual real Christian. You have more in common. You should have more fellowship with him than, if you're red, than somebody who's also red. Which is funny we say red now because that used to be, communist. But anyway, I guess the red scare is gone.
Yeah.
Than you do with someone who may wear the same hat that you do, but isn't actually Christian. So I say all this to say, don't get too caught up in that stuff. Like just don't get too caught up in it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. All right. If you want to be a Christian, Bonhoeffer's saying, follow Jesus Christ, but not in like some religious sense where you go to church and just follow the rules and do whatever, and not in some subjective inward experience sense, but in the actual real world sense. Okay, on July 20th, 1944, a group of German military officers and civilians attempted to assassinate Adolf Hitler and overthrow the Nazi regime in what became known as the July 20th plot, or Operation Valkyrie. The central figure in the assassination attempt was Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg. This is the most German name I've ever heard of, who believed that killing Hitler was the only way to save Germany from destruction. Stauffenberg carried a briefcase bomb into a meeting at Hitler's headquarters, the Wolf's Lair, which I don't like Hitler at all, but the Wolf's Lair is a pretty cool name for a headquarters. I'm just going to say that. In East Prussia, he placed the briefcase under the table near Hitler and excused himself just before the explosion. That always gives it off. You just got to stay there with it. The bomb detonated, killing 4 people and injuring several others, but Hitler survived with only minor injuries because the heavy wooden table absorbed much of the blast. That German engineering.
It was a beer.
I know. If he was in like China or something, never mind. Okay, sorry. The conspirators attempted to seize power in Berlin using the German army's reserve operation Plan Valkyrie, but the plot unraveled quickly since it was confirmed that Hitler was still alive. In the aftermath, Hitler ordered a brutal crackdown. Thousands were arrested. Around 200 people were executed, including Stauffenberg and other key conspirators. Despite its failure, the July 20 plot became a powerful symbol of internal German resistance to Nazism. And then the next day, knowing what happened, because it's the next day, everyone in Germany would have heard if Hitler died. Bonhoeffer wrote this letter. Again, to Eberhard. All I want to do today is to send you a short greeting. I expect you are often here with us in your thoughts and are always glad of any sign of life, even if the theological discussion stops for a moment. I will say that once the plot to kill Hitler failed, Bonhoeffer probably knew that he was dead. These theological thoughts are, in fact, always occupying my mind, but there are times when I'm just content to live the life of faith without worrying about its problems. At those times, I simply take pleasure in the day's readings, in particular those of yesterday and today, and I'm always glad to go back to Paul Gerhardt's beautiful hymns. During the last year or so, I've come to understand more and more the profound this worldliness of Christianity. He's on it again. The Christian is not a homo religiosus, but simply a man, as Jesus was a man. So Christianity is not like a kind of religion, but simply a man, Jesus. In contrast to, shall we say, John the Baptist. I don't mean the shallow and banal it's the hyphens driving me off. I don't mean the shallow and banal this worldliness of the enlightened, the busy, the comfortable, what is it, Mom? How do you say that? Lascivious. But the profound this worldliness, characterized by discipline and the constant knowledge of death and resurrection. So he's saying that he believes Christianity, which he's already said in the last letters, following Jesus Christ in this world, is characterized by discipline and the constant knowledge of death and resurrection. I think Luther lived a this worldly life in this sense. I remember a conversation I had in America 13 years ago with a young French pastor. We were asking ourselves quite simply what we wanted to do with our lives. He said that he would like to become a saint. The French, right? And I think that it's quite likely that he did become one. I don't know if he's being a little, I don't know. At the time, I was very impressed, but I disagreed with him and said, in effect, that I would like to learn to have faith. Doesn't that sound better? The French pastor wants to be a saint. The German pastor, he wants to learn to have faith. Yeah. For a long time, I did not realize the depth of the contrast. I thought that I could acquire faith by trying to live a holy life, or something like that. I suppose I wrote The Cost of Discipleship, his most famous work, as the end of that path. Today, I can see the dangers of that book, though I still stand by what I wrote. Okay, still getting those, a little bit of those royalties, so keep selling that bad boy. I discovered later, and I'm still discovering right up to this moment, that it is only by living completely in this world that one learns to have faith. Not trying to live a holy life, but living completely in this world. One must abandon completely any attempt to make something of oneself, whether it be a saint or a converted sinner or a churchman, the so-called priestly type, a righteous man or an unrighteous man, a sick man, a healthy one. Stop trying to make yourself into something. By this worldliness, I mean living unreservedly in life's duties, problems, successes, and failures, experiences, and perplexities. In doing so, we throw ourselves completely into the hands of God, taking seriously not our own sufferings, but those of God and the world, watching with Christ in Gethsemane. That, I think, is faith. That is metanoia, and that is how one becomes a man or a woman and a Christian. How can success make us arrogant or failure lead us astray when we share in God's sufferings of a life of this kind? So Bonhoeffer says, memento mori, remember your death. This is carpe diem, seize the day. Live unreservedly. Not by saying, I want to be a saint. I want to find faith. But just live in this world unreservedly. There's going to be duties, there's going to be problems, there's going to be successes and failures, experience and perplexities. Experience them, live in them, follow Christ in them. And take seriously the sufferings of God in this world. You watching with Christ in Gethsemane. And he says in that last sentence, how can success make us arrogant? Right? Or failure lead us astray when we share in God's sufferings of a life of this kind. So if you live the life that Bonhoeffer is talking about, it doesn't matter how quote-unquote successful you are. It doesn't matter how much of a quote-unquote failure you are. It's about you sharing God's sufferings of a life in the world, right? Here, in the moment, in the world. I think that you see what I mean. And Everhard might be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Even though I put it so briefly, I'm glad to be able to learn this and know that I've only been able to do so along the road that I have traveled. So I'm grateful for the past and the present and content with them. You may be surprised at such a personal letter instead of, holy crap, we didn't get to kill Hitler. But for once, I want to say this kind of thing. To whom should I say it? Perhaps the time will come when I can talk to Maria like this. I very much hope so, but I can't expect it of her yet. She's kind of dumb. It's like trying to talk to Sarah about theology. I'm just kidding. May God in his mercy lead us through these times, but above all, may he lead us to himself. But may God in his mercy lead us through these times, but above all, may he lead us to himself. I was delighted to hear from you and glad that you are not finding it too hot. There must be a good many letters from me on the way. Didn't we go more or less along that way in 1936? Goodbye. Keep well. Don't lose hope that we shall meet again soon. I always think of you in faithfulness and gratitude. Your Dietrich. After the miscarriage of July 20th, Bonhoeffer was transferred from one prison to another, the Gestapo prisons in Berlin, Buchenwald, Schonenberg, and finally Flossenburg, and all contacts with the outside world were severed. His last weeks were spent with men and women of many nationalities, Russians, Englishmen, Frenchmen, Italians, and Germans. One of these, an English officer, wrote, Bonhoeffer always seemed to me to spread an atmosphere of happiness and joy over the least incident and profound gratitude for the mere fact that he was alive. He was one of the very few persons I have ever met for whom God was real and always near. On Sunday, April 8th, 1945, Pastor Bonhoeffer conducted a little service of worship and spoke to us in a way that went to the heart of all of us. He found just the right words to express the spirit of our imprisonment, the thoughts and the resolutions it had brought us. He had hardly ended his last prayer when the door opened and 2 civilians entered. They said, "Prisoner Bonhoeffer, come with us." That had only one meaning for all prisoners, the gallows. We said goodbye to him. He took me aside. "This is the end, but for me it is the beginning of life." The next day he was hung in Flossenburg. The text on which he spoke on that last day was, "With his stripes are we healed." Such was the life and death of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a teacher of the church in the highest sense of the word, a writer of profound theological and biblical insight, and yet close to contemporary life and sensitive to reality, a witness who saw the way of discipleship and walked it to the end. There you go. It's Bonhoeffer. Hey, what's up, Missing? You just entered in a very dramatic moment. You might have been Bonhoeffer. That would have been crazy.
You don't say-
Just walked in. No, you're good.
This lesson here, and just the depth of this, was any of this evident in, did you see the movie?
I have read about the movie. I have not watched the movie yet. I have some. I will probably watch the movie. I will say that from what I've read, the movie focuses on his time in America,
Okay.
which is good. So, and not his time in America, like when he goes to Harlem and all those kinds of
But
things.
it's not going to let anybody know what he was deeply about.
Yeah, that's Bonhoeffer. I mean, if you want to find somebody who kind of personified he did what he counseled others to do. He says, "Where are the responsible people?" And he was responsible. He went back to Germany. He helped in the seminaries. He helped preaching. I mean, literally the day before he's getting hung, he's preaching, and they're calling him Pastor Bonhoeffer, not Dr. Bonhoeffer, even though he wrote 2 dissertations by the time he was like 21. He was smarter than all of us combined. He was just Pastor Bonhoeffer. He had every right to be upset. He had every right to be disappointed. He knew he's never going to get to see his wife. He's never going to be able to have children. He died when he was 39. And, yet he lived the life that he told others to live. And in that way, he's unlike a whole lot of theologians who talk about all kinds of stuff, but then they get to do so from the comfort of the ivory tower or the children's church room in Authentic Life Fellowship or the Vatican. So I will say this, kind of ended, is that if you get anything out of this, which you're never supposed to say because people all forget everything else. If you get anything out of this, if Bonhoeffer could tell us anything today, I think, and I'm not sure, but I think that he would say, follow Christ in this world faithfully, responsibly, and don't get distracted or sidetracked by all of the stuff and all of the fluff, but instead wake up every day, pray a prayer, read your Bible, pray your prayers. Father, how do I follow you? How do I follow Christ today in this world? With the people that I meet, the people that I talk to, my work, my ride up to Arkansas, my teaching with these 4th grade kids, me either saving lives or giving people caffeine, Callie, the dealing with the mentally ill, Zane, whatever it is you do, in everything we do, how do we follow Christ? How do we go forth to follow Christ, which is what I've told you every time we leave this thing. And if you wake up every day and you do that, you kind of turn off the noise and just try and do that, then I think that you will not only make Bonhoeffer proud, but I think that you'll probably be closer to what God wants each of us to do. So that's it. That's all Bonhoeffer. Again, I would recommend the 2 works of his that I would recommend highly are his Life Together and his Letters and Papers from Prison, which are his. He's mostly famous for constant discipleship, and maybe even his ethics might be more popular. I would stay away from his ethics unless Zane. I know you do psychology, but you can get along with it. It's very philosophical. So just but life together.
Are you saying we're too dumb?
No, I'm not saying you're too dumb. It's just you got to work through it. I got to work through it too. It's not something you can just kind of read. It's something you got to like read and look up definitions and all this other stuff. You can just read Life Together, read through his letters and papers from prison. And what I would recommend is I chose these two. There's a lot of other ones, but in particular, the last one I think is very powerful. So yeah, we're done. I guess any kind of overall thoughts on Bonhoeffer after these 8 weeks? Like him, don't like him? Anything that's going to stick with you throughout after the time?
To me, he seems like he was a man of action with no limits
Yeah.
until the end when he was limited.
That's true. And even then, he's doing everything he can.
Up until the gallows.
Yeah, up until the gallows. And even then, he doesn't go. There's the famous, rage against the dying of the light. Not for him. He goes, it's the end. But for me, it's the beginning of life. He already had his. He had that perspective of Paul. Remember, Paul in Philippians goes, I'd rather be there, but if the Lord wants me to be here, I'm going to be, I'm going to be working. It's better for y'all if I'm here. And imagine what the world would have been like if we had another 40 years of Bonhoeffer. I mean, he died at 45 when he was 39. He could have lived another 40 years. He could have died in 1985. By then, they would have made the news for y'all. Some of y'all were alive. Everyone on this side's old. For us, he's still on anything. But yeah. Anybody else? Thoughts? Overall thoughts, impressions? Sarah, you got anything? No. You don't like him.
That's all right.
It's all right. Sorry about Arnold.
He's fun to wrestle with. It's fun to wrestle with his thoughts, and once you understand them, look at how they might apply to our lives now.
Yes, I would say for somebody who's dead 80 years, he's very practical.
He reminds me of times when after I became a believer that, and we would go out and you talk about, interacting with the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I would hear a lot of times when, sharing my faith with somebody, they would gravitate toward calling me a religious person. You're a religious person. And of course, I would.
In a religionless world.
I would basically, so I would use the whole relationship thing.
You'd be like, it's not about religion, it's about your subjective inner experience, man.
Well,
smoke a joint, talking about Jesus with
my
me.
attempt was but many times the idea was that there's something bigger.
Sure.
Than
beyond religion.
Organized religion.
Yep.
Because a lot of times the next thing they would ask would be like, well, what church do you go to?
Yeah.
Because they want to categorize you as a person.
Yeah.
Oh, you're Catholic.
Oh,
okay. Well, then
you guys pray to Mary.
Yeah, then they put you in a certain category, or if you're Baptist, okay, all right, okay.
I'm going to motion picture houses for y'all.
So, and I, of course, I was a Bible church person, but I would, but the thing is, I wouldn't even say that.
Yeah.
I would always focus back on Christ and the resurrection, because that was that was something that was big. And again, we go through these different things, good things. One of the things that was really big in the early '80s was Josh McDowell's Evidence that Demands a Verdict, and the thing that was really the focus or attempt was to get people to realize that, because so many people were we see it all the time, but the idea that Christ is a historical person. He literally lived. He literally died. It's historic. It's history. It's not this ethereal.
Sure.
The idea of the Christ, such a great idea. And it's like, well, it's not. And so, like you said, we have people even to this day who, they're sort of that German liberal theology that sort of permeates through.
I would say that's the vast majority of American Christianity is subjective,
How
feely.
does it make you feel?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say
Or-
that's the majority. Of it.
Yeah, and I would get a lot of the um, in trying to get somebody to understand the decision to
Follow Christ.
to trust Christ
Yeah.
and so forth, and they would always go, well, I'm glad that worked for you,
Yeah.
and so I would try to
For
counter
me, I have
with
the Buddha.
yeah, but I would counter that with I would try to continue to focus on
You're gonna
Christ
go
was
to
a
hell.
no.
Oh, sorry.
The Christ was a real person.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And that there's,
The 80s are way different than what I remembered.
yeah, it
So
must have
very-
been. I don't think you remember the 80s.
Anyway, I remember it very well. I was alive for 2 months. Anybody else? Impressions on Bonhoeffer? Jordan? You got anything?
Jordan,
Jordan?
I enjoyed learning.
Enjoyed you, Bonhoeffer?
Yep.
Kelly? Your highlight stuff, writing like crazy.
I just like to annotate
It's like that's
for simpler terms for me.
Zay, any thoughts?
Yeah, I liked it.
Good.
I like what he's talking here about, like, this worldliness and kind of trying to tie it all together rather than just, hey, someday I'm going to die and go to heaven.
Right.
And it's all about that rather
Yep.
than there is an actual purpose here.
Yes.
Right.
Perfect. And I will say this, just by being in this class, not really class, but by being part of this for the last 8 weeks, you know more theology than most Christians. You have read more theology than most Christians ever will. I mean, just by being this. And if you're like Jordan and Callie and some of the others who've been with me for a long time and through Augustine and some of this other stuff, you've definitely read more theology than most Christians. And I encourage you. Obviously, I'm a biblical studies guy. I read scripture. Like, that's what we should all do. But when you have people like Bonhoeffer, who are incredibly intelligent and also incredibly faithful servants of God, what they say about faith and about what it means to be a Christian really matters. And when you have somebody like Bonhoeffer who didn't do it from the sidelines, but was on the field and didn't come off the field. I mean, his retirement was the gallows. It means a little bit more, I think.
Yeah.
He's not perfect, but think of him standing. Think of the stance that he took when the vast majority of the rest of the world, in his world, his church, the other German Christians, all those other people would say, "You're a radical, you're a heretic." Think of what he did. He stood up to it all and said, "No, this is not right. This is not what Christianity is. This is not what this means." And they hung him for it. So who knows? They might do the same to us.
If he were alive today, I get his thinking and theology and what he's speaking about here. At that time period, if Nazism was not around,
Sure.
would he still be focused on this type of
That's a great question.
theology and stuff?
I think that he would. I think he still would have reacted to German liberal theology. Because
I guess his motivation was not primarily Nazism and fighting that.
It was heightened by that. I mean, what Nazism did for him and Bart, above all else, was demonstrate to them that the church that they were a part of and followed was misguided.
His Exhibit A.
Yes, it's like, okay, wait a minute. If Hitler comes out and our church is like, "Yay, Hitler!" Yikes! There's something wrong here, and that's where they.
What I'm leading to, if he was alive today, and say this, what is going on in the world today would be his motivation?
That's a great question.
What would be his Exhibit A?
Yeah, that's a great question. Great question.
I sent you a text the other day thinking about that stuff. Some of those things that are bigger than I think those today are bigger than Nazism.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that I don't know. That's a really good question for him. I think he would be really concerned coming from a state church and seeing how everything happened with the movement to tie evangelical Christianity to a particular political movement. Not that he would necessarily be against the political movement itself, but I think he would see the connecting the two as a kind of a dangerous thing, because if you have a section, a huge section of the religious, the Christian, who are tied to a particular political party, and this has shifted. I think this is different than it was in like the 30s or 40s, and I think he would have had a problem with that too. But tied to a particular political movement, he sees the danger of what that church will allow. What happens when someone truly dangerous comes in through that political movement. So I think he would be a champion of, like, let's remember where our allegiance is to Christ first and foremost. And then there are things that are happening in the world that he would most certainly have a problem with. For sure. I mean, there's all kinds of things. I think he would be a champion for the same causes that he was a champion of then. I mean, he was not he came to Harlem and really got saved, kind of. I think he would have, I don't know, loved America. He talked, he was great friends with Reinhold Niebuhr, who was kind of, that was like kind of social Christianity, although Niebuhr got really too involved in kind of politics, I think, for Bonhoeffer. What was interesting about Bonhoeffer is that, and I understand he's writing these letters where they're going to be censored, he doesn't really talk about politics very much. He's talking about like following Christ. But people obviously would take that politically. And I think it's the same thing. If you today go and you say, hey, as Christians, we should be doing X, Y, and Z, and people go like, oh, you're talking politics. And you go, no, I mean, this is what I think, this is what Jesus told us to do. I think that he would say, hey, let's follow Christ. And then people would probably decry him as some woke,
Jesus was
whatever.
Probably not a registered voter.
Probably, yeah. I mean, Jesus said, render to Caesar's what is Caesar's, give to God's what is God's. So I think he would ruffle feathers anywhere you put him. He would ruffle feathers. But yeah, I don't know. That's a really interesting question.
I've drilled even deeper.
Yeah.
Or to the root cause of what I had sent to you.
Sure.
I'm beyond that now. There's a cause for what's going on.
Gotcha.
And we'll talk.
Yeah, and I think I think above all, what we'd find Bonhoeffer doing is we'd find him pastoring a small church or teaching some pastors in a seminary and writing his theological stuff, and he'd be playing piano somewhere. I mean, I think that for someone like Bonhoeffer, what you do with what's in front of you. You have so much time left. I have so much time left. You have so much influence. I have so much influence. You have places you go. I have places I go. People we talk to. People we influence. Free time. What we do. What you do with what's in front of you. What I do with what's in front of me. Are we doing that? Are we following Christ in doing that? I think he would be chiefly concerned with. And to all of that, we go, well, no, not like we should be. And so we take his, hopefully his words as a kind of encouragement, but also a challenge. I mean, we're probably not going to be hung by the Nazis, but will we live a life of meaning? I mean, Bonhoeffer was 39, and he lived a more fulfilled life and had more influence than the vast majority of people. Yeah. And I mean, the thing that I wrestle with today is like, especially reading him, as I go, what should I speak out on that I don't? Who should I advocate for that I don't? We're doing a foster care Sunday here on Sunday. We're gonna have somebody come and talk to it, and that's obviously a huge thing in my life. I mean, I'm a CASA. For a very long time. I mean, my work at the Boys and Girls Club, my work as a CASA, my work with Adopt a Family. I mean, I spend a lot of my time trying to help with like these kids in foster care. And we have the same number of kids in foster care as when I started trying to work on it how many years ago. So, I mean, it's a frustrating thing, but also like a challenge. I mean, I'm not going to be happy until every kid who from Hunt County who needs foster care is cared for by people in this county. And I think it should be Christians. I don't think if we have 100,000 people in here and 50,000 of them say that they're Christians, then there shouldn't be 83 kids that don't have beds in this house, in this county. Tom, I know you. The things you're passionate about, the work you do with the homeless, and how important that is. Dad, how you care about St. Jude's. These kinds of things that we do, I think are really important. If God has given you something on your heart, and missions, Jordan, passionate about missions. We all have these kind of callings from God. Like, let's not grow weary in doing those things. Let's finish well, up to the end. Yeah. All right, it's 8:06. I'll let you guys go. I can talk about Bonhoeffer forever. Thank you for everybody online. Thanks for, I know Jeff and Howard and Kat, and I see Caleb is listening and all that. So appreciate your time. And those who are going to listen, Tanya and Jo Beth, those who are going to listen, go forth and follow Christ. Thank you very much. You're done with Bonhoeffer.